For the best part of 2 decades now, Red Bull have had a constant stream of incredible junior drivers. They've fueled the sport with their support of junior drivers who have turned into some of the best drivers in modern F1. I'm talking about the likes of Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon. However, they are encountering a recent problem. The torrent of junior drivers is reducing to a trickle. None of their current F2 crop are flourishing in the way that those I just mentioned did. With their current F1 driver lineup looking so shaky, Red Bull need to act immediately to ensure they can keep a top-tier driver lineup so they can compete for championships. Today, I'll check out Red Bull's imminent signing of one of F2's brightest talents, what it means for their future, and why it might not be enough to save them from mediocrity. So, don't go anywhere. Junior drivers are a big deal in modern F1. There was a time not too long ago where the vast majority of F1 drivers made it to the sport because they had very wealthy parents who could pay their way through the junior categories. Assuming you actually had the talent to make it to F1, estimates of the cost of funding that journey vary wildly, but it will easily exceed $5 million. That limits the potential drivers to a very small pool of very rich children. It wasn't uncommon for the best karting talents around the world to disappear before they ever made it to junior formula categories because the costs became far too much. That has changed though with the explosion of F1 teams starting academies. Don't get me wrong, it still costs tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to get to a karting level where you can get noticed. But if you have the talent to dominate national karting championships, then there is a good chance that an F1 team will be willing to fund you through the junior categories. The money invested into these junior drivers can total millions of dollars, though there are a lot of conflicting accounts of just how much of a junior career the F1 team will cover. For example, when Oscar Piastri made his shock move to McLaren after Alpine announced he would be driving for them, Piastri's manager Mark Webber claimed Alpine had only paid for 20% of his junior career, meaning his parents, prize money, and any sponsors would have paid millions to get him to F1. While F1 teams are happy to spend big to get the best talent into their team, there aren't that many seats available. Take McLaren for example. They have 2 fantastic drivers, one of which is still very early in his career. They could have been funding a driver for the past 5 years through the junior categories, not knowing they would have such an incredible lineup when that driver was ready to mature into F1. In that situation, McLaren don't want to continue paying for a driver's career if they aren't going to drive for them in F1, and that means letting them go, which is exactly what has happened with the Irish talent Alex Albon. The 19-year-old Formula 2 driver impressed on his Formula 1 debut in Austria in June, finishing 4th in first practice, just 0.069 seconds behind championship leader Oscar Piastri. Although McLaren rate Albon highly as a potential future F1 driver, they're unable to reach an agreement on his future that satisfied both parties. Albon no doubt wanted funding until he had an F1 drive, and some kind of guarantee that an F1 drive would be forthcoming in the future. McLaren were probably only willing to fund him for a few more years, and aren't in a position to promise him a seat on the team. Fortunately for Albon, Red Bull are desperate to get their hands on some new F1 drivers for next season and beyond. Alex is reportedly close to a deal to join Red Bull's junior driver program. He had been in talks with Alpine about a potential F1 move, but insiders say those have collapsed. If the Red Bull deal is signed, he would continue for a second season in Formula 2, with a chance to graduate to F1 with their second team, the Racing Bulls, in 2027. A Red Bull spokesperson said, "Alex is a talented driver and will be of interest to many in the paddock, but Red Bull will only comment on drivers who are signed to the Red Bull program." Albon said on social media that he was very excited for what's to come with an eye emoji, implying he hasn't left McLaren without a plan for the future. "From today, I've mutually decided to part ways with the McLaren driver development program," he said. "I'd like to thank every individual at McLaren that has helped me develop and improve as a driver. To have my first opportunity to drive an F1 car, followed by 2 FP1 sessions, is something I'll always hold very close to my heart. I wish them all the best for the future. Thank you, Papaya family." If a deal is coming between Albon and Red Bull, then it couldn't be better time for the F1 team. They are in desperate need of promising talent that is ready to graduate into F1 when needed. But before I talk about that, If you want to catch more news and analysis on everything F1, then make sure to press the like button and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. While Red Bull may have 11 junior Formula drivers, not including Alex Albon, and 4 F1 drivers on their books at the moment, they're still facing an imminent driver shortage. Yuki Tsunoda has never appeared to be a part of Red Bull's long-term plans, and with his contract up at the end of this season, it seems unlikely he'll still be a part of the Red Bull family in 2026. In his place is likely to step Isaac Hadjar, who has impressed this season. There has been plenty of positive talk from Helmut Marko regarding Hadjar's promotion, and Helmut has never been very good at keeping a secret. With Hadjar and Verstappen at Red Bull for 2026, that leaves Liam Lawson on his lonesome at the Racing Bulls. There's unlikely to be any junior talent elsewhere who would want to make a move to the Racing Bulls, and Red Bull have always preferred to promote internally anyway. Here is where they find some issues though. None of their junior drivers seem to be ready for the step up to Formula One. They have 3 drivers currently competing in F2: Arvid Lindblad, Oliver Goethe, and Pepe Marti. Pepe is the only one in his second full season in F2, but none of them appear to be F1's next superstar driver. That doesn't mean they won't develop into a top driver, but none are performing at the same level as F1's current top drivers did when they were in F2. Marti and Lindblad sit 6th and 7th respectively in the F2 Drivers' Championship at the moment, while Goethe is currently 17th. If you look at the junior careers of the likes of Verstappen, Russell, the McLaren pair and Leclerc, they all made it through F2 within a season or so by finishing inside the top 2. Assuming Alex Albon does get signed by Red Bull as a junior driver, then he would have the best junior record of the 4, but still only sits 5th in the current championship. It is very likely that Red Bull are going to have to promote one of those drivers into F1 next season. While Pepe Marti might have the most experience, reports from people who are close to the situation favour Lindblad as the driver that Red Bull would move out of F2. So Red Bull's 2026 lineup is likely to be Verstappen and Hadjar, with Lawson and Lindblad at the Racing Bulls. But then what happens in 2027? If Red Bull aren't competing for a championship next season, then there's very little chance that Verstappen will remain with the team for 2027, and odds are that Red Bull won't be in championship contention. With Verstappen gone, the Red Bull stable looks very lacking in quality and experience. Red Bull could end up with a Hadjar and Lawson lineup in 2027, with Lindblad and Dunn or Marti at the Racing Bulls. At the moment, those lineups don't read like the Red Bull lineups of the past. Of course, Hadjar could become a top-tier driver, and maybe Lawson would perform better during a second stint at Red Bull, but both have a lot of developing to do before they can match up to any of the drivers that currently sit inside the top 5 positions in the Drivers' Championship. Do you see either being a future F1 champion? And who of the current crop of F2 drivers do you think is the most likely to make a lasting impression on F1? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.